West Africa Democracy Radio.
WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 o'clock in Porto Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on wadr.org. This is NEWSLINK and here are the top stories. Liberia's President-elect Joseph Boakai visits victims of Monday's vehicle accident at his party's headquarters. ECOWAS court to hear Niger's request for lifting economic sanctions on December 7. Death toll in ethnic clashes in Ghana's Oti region rises to 8 as residents flee area for safety.
Police have confirmed 8 lives that have been lost and their bodies were conveyed to the morgue.
In fact, when you go to Nkwanta is a pale shadow of itself. The town has become a ghost town.
And Nigeria's government revokes over 1,000 mining licenses over unpaid fees.
In compliance with this law, the MCO on October 4, 2023 began the process of revoking 2,213 titles.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is a more edit with NEWSLINK.
Many thanks for joining us. The Liberia police has launched a full investigation into a hit and run incident at the headquarters of the Unity Party at Broad Street, Monrovia. Lawrence Williams, 31 years old, remains the primary suspect after he rammed into a crowd, killing at least 3 people and injuring 22 others. The tragedy occurred late Monday as the now ruling party supporters were celebrating the president-elect Joseph Boakai. WDL's Darlington Popper reports.
The Liberia police spokesman Moses Carter said the suspect is currently assisting with the investigation, calling on the public to remain calm and allow the investigators to do their work.
Now reported 3 deaths. Of those 3 deaths, 2 males, 1 female, as confirmed by medical doctors at the John F. Kennedy Medical Center. Police investigation established the cause of the incident was due to a vehicle operator running into some supporters of the Unity Party who were celebrating victory at their headquarters. The operator, alleged suspect Lawrence K. Williams, has been arrested and is undergoing investigation.
President-elect Joseph Boakai, who visited the victims at the John F. Kennedy Hospital, described the incident as a tragedy, promising to work with the medical doctors to cater for the victims.
This was very unfortunate, but we will work with the doctors wherever we need help. We'll work with those that have died. We'll work with their families too. This is something nobody planned, but we can assure you that the aftermath will be a blessing. So I want to say to you, never mind.
This development has raised concerns among citizens about what to expect before and after the handover between outgoing President George Weah and Joseph Boakai. It is important to state that no link has been established between the suspect and the former ruling party, but it is currently speculated that the racial arm of the CDC is aggrieved over Weah's defeat in the polls. While it is a new dawn for Liberia and Liberians, the victims' families are calling on the police to speed up the investigation and ensure the suspect and anyone or group of persons involved in the deliberate act are prosecuted.
Our children, our brother, we won't know what people are out there. Yes. And open our car door and just go into people. We won't know what is happening. We don't want to do that.
For the NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
In Burkina Faso, around 15 civilians, including 3 army auxiliaries, were killed in an attack in Diapaga in the east of the country. 2 neighborhoods were targeted by gunmen. Following the attack on Tuesday, the local authorities declared a town-wide day of silence. More details with Sang Donald Mendy.
12 civilians and 3 volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland (VDP) civilian auxiliaries to the army were killed in the attack. In a written note, a spokesman for civil society organization, Kondia Per Yonli, said markets, schools and all public services had remained closed in tribute to the fallen heroes. Confirming the attack, a security source told AFP that, and I quote, the response of the defense forces enabled the attackers to be driven back and several dozens neutralized. Since 2015, Burkina has been caught up in a spiral of violence perpetrated by jihadist groups affiliated to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda, which were already striking neighboring Mali and Niger. These attacks have killed more than 17,000 civilians and soldiers over the past 8 years, including more than 6,000 since the beginning of 2023, according to the NGO ACLED, which records the victims of conflicts around the world.
Sang Donald Mendy reporting there. Still in Burkina Faso, the interim president, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, on Tuesday welcomed the former president of the Ivorian National Assembly, Guillaume Soro. Soro's Generations and Solidarity People's Party reported on social networks that the two personalities met around noon. The former Ivorian Prime Minister stated that he set foot on the Burkinabe soil with a lot of emotions after spending 5 years away from the African continent in exile. Human rights, consolidating peace and democracy, and the fight against terrorism were some of the issues discussed between them at the presidential palace. Recall on November 11, Guillaume Soro announced that he wanted to end its exile, which began in 2019. The Nigerian junta was at the ECOWAS court on Tuesday to ask for the lifting of economic sanctions imposed on the country following the July 26 coup. The legal team representing the CNSP argued that all sectors of the nation's economy have been hit by the sanctions. Yunkaila Yaye led the junta's legal pool at the hearing in Abuja, Nigeria's capital. As Ogibierika reports, the hearing has been adjourned to December 7, 2023.
At Tuesday's hearing, the junta's lawyers described the ways the sanctions are hurting Niger, including children's inability to return to school because of limited supplies. Drugstores, they say, are running out of supplies, and several businesses shutting down because of rising costs. Yayi accused ECOWAS of punishing Nigerians over the coup in ways harsher than it has handled coups in other countries, especially regarding financial transactions. The junta asked the court to relax the sanctions pending the final judgment, but ECOWAS protested against their request. Francois Kanga Pennant, the ECOWAS lawyer, argued that the junta is not recognized under the bloc's protocol and does not have the power to institute such a case in court. The court adjourned until December 7, 2023. Nigeria and Benin were among Niger's neighbors to implement the economic sanctions announced by ECOWAS after the coup against President Mohamed Bazoum a month ago. These states shut their borders with Niger, and more than 70% of its electricity supplied by Nigeria was cut off after financial transactions with West African countries were suspended. Niger's assets in external banks were frozen, and hundreds of millions of dollars in aid from the United States, Denmark, and Germany were withheld. The sanctions were the most stringent yet imposed by the regional bloc to stem the tide of coups in Africa's volatile Sahel region.
Ogibierika reporting there.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
In Côte d'Ivoire, the candidates vying for the PDCI leadership are now known. Nominations closed a few days ago. The Democratic Party of Côte d'Ivoire will be holding its extraordinary Congress on December 16. It is at the end of this meeting that party members will know who will replace the former president, the late Henry Konan Bedie, as the head of the political party. Abdullah Hassan report.
There are a total of 5 candidates to succeed Henry Konan Bedie as the head of the PDCI. The first is Maurice Kaku Gikawe, a member of the PDCI's political bureau and one of the late Henry Konan Bedie's oldest companions. Tijan Cham, a banker, has been silent ever since the party executives called on him to stand as a candidate. Thrilled by his nomination, Cham is pledging to serve the PDCI. The 3 other candidates are John Mark Yassé, current mayor of Cocody, Komoe Kofi Moise, former Minister of Economy and Finance under Felix Houphouët-Boigny, and the former Mayor of Plateau, Noel Akossi Benjo. The 3 candidates, all members of the political bureau of Côte d'Ivoire's oldest party, insisted on the unity and cohesion of the party above all else. Following the death in August of the PDCI's historic president, Henri Konan Bedi, the party will meet on December 16 to elect its new president. The new president is expected to implement a new political structure with the 2025 presidential election in sight.
Abdullah Hassan reporting there. Now, the death toll from renewed ethnic clashes in Kwanta, Ghana's Oti region has risen to 8. Local residents report that tension had been escalating over the past 3 weeks due to disputes surrounding a yam festival organized by the Akiode people. The situation escalated on Monday when unidentified attackers fired sporadically into a busy market, resulting in the death of 8 individuals and injuring several others. Fleeing residents have left behind destroyed homes and properties to ensure their safety. One resident who fled the area for safety described the incident as unprecedented.
Monday, around 3, so we heard noise. People started running helter-skelter for their lives. We heard they were shooting in the market, to which I even learned that a policeman was shot, and he is battling with his life now. In the morning of Tuesday, they gathered 5 people, for which I even know one person personally. That guy is known by everybody. He was killed, he was even beheaded. So the situation, everybody started fleeing town. In fact, when you go to Nkwanta, it's a pale shadow of itself. The town has become a ghost town. There was no living car, shops have closed, businesses have come to a halt. Nobody is even, you won't even see anybody. You won't see anybody. When you see women and children fleeing for their lives, it's pathetic. So you don't know. You actually have you live in perpetual fear. You see, so some of us we had to leave town yesterday evening, and if on the way on that's good. But the town is not safe. The police cutting to the mortuary yesterday. You see, so the situation, I wish something will be done urgently so that calm will return. You also realize that sometimes the people are even ahead of the security. Before you hear something has happened, before the security will be running there. Some of us who get our daily bread from there, we see it as something we cannot even contend with because we've not witnessed things like that before. And I've been there for more than 6 years. Annually, you hear some confusion, but it has never disseminated like this before. You hear that, there has been some fight here and there, but it has never come to this stage. It has never come to this.
That was the resident of Oti there. Well, the regional minister, Dr. Joshua Makuba, has announced the deployment of additional forces to restore order and calm to the area.
Regarding the number of lives lost, as at yesterday, police had confirmed 8 lives that had been lost, and the bodies were conveyed to the morgue. And regarding what is being done to forestall any outbreaks and disturbances, based on research recommendations, more men have been sent to Nkwanta South, and a curfew has also been imposed on Nkwanta South from the hours of 5 p.m. to 6 a.m. And that is what is currently happening in town. So people's lives are protected.
Oti Regional Minister Dr. Joshua Makuba speaking there. Now, the Gambian government on Tuesday received a boost on its Sustainable Growth and Climate Resilience Program following a World Bank $60 million financing approval. Granted through the International Development Association, IDA, the financial support aims to help the country unlock its productive potential, strengthen procurement, economic governance of SOEs and domestic revenue mobilization, and strengthen climate and social resilience. Our Banjo correspondent Sankli Janko has more in this report.
This is the first development policy support operation in a new series designed to underpin reforms conducive to resilient and inclusive growth, the World Bank says. Engineered on 3 pillars, the first arm of the program supports tackling bottlenecks in private sector participation in energy, fostering competition and leveling the playing field in the groundnut sector, as well as enabling the use of digital and electronic payments. The other pillar aims to support reforms to build fiscal space and improve transparency and efficiency in the use of public resources and institutions. And the third pillar targets reforms aimed at increasing social and climate resilience, notably through improved disaster risk management framework and adaptive social protection system, while ensuring the needs of women and girls are met. The Gambia ranks 148 out of 181 countries in terms of extreme climate vulnerability. The increase in frequency of floods is having a heavy impact on the population and key sectors, with more than half of the country's inhabitants living in urban areas and 80% of the urban population living within 20 kilometers of the Atlantic coast. Expected sea level rise is a major risk. To this effect, the World Bank says this new financing includes a $20 million catastrophe-deferred drawdown option that can be fully or partially disbursed in the event of a natural disaster, including public health-related emergencies. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Sankula Jenku reporting from Banjul.
You're listening to NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Liberia's President-elect Joseph Boakai visits victims of Monday's vehicle accident at his party's headquarters. ECOWAS called to hear Niger's request for lifting economic sanctions on December 7. Death toll in the ethnic clashes in Ghana's Oti region rises to 8 as residents flee the area for safety. And still ahead, Nigeria's government revokes over 1,000 mining licenses over unpaid fees. We do have a newspaper review, guest interview segment, and sports updates. Please stay with us.
You are listening to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal.
We're streaming live on wadr.org, YouTube, and Facebook. Nigeria's government, through the Ministry of Solid Minerals Development, has revoked 1,633 mineral titles of unpaid annual fees. This was disclosed by the ministry's spokesminister, Dr. Oladeleke Alake, on Tuesday at a press briefing in Abuja. The number of revoked licenses this year is less than 3,402 mineral titles revoked late last year. According to the minister, the Nigerian Minerals and Mining Act, NMMA 2007, requires mining operators to pay an annual service fee at a fixed rate, but some firms are not complying with this law. The minister noted that the amount required annually is as low as 1,500 naira per cadastral units, not more than 200 units. He lamented that the mining firms are making huge profits from mining sites but still fail to make necessary payments to the government.
In compliance with this law, the MCO on October 4, 2023, began the process of revoking 2,213 titles. This included 795 exploration titles, 956 small-scale mining licenses, 364 quarry licenses, and 98 mining licenses. These were published in the Federal Government Gazette, number 178, volume 110 of October 10, 2023, with the notice of revocation for defaulting in the payment of annual service fees. The mandatory 30 days expired on November 10, 2023. In line with the powers conferred on me, therefore, by the NMA, that's the Mining Act 207, Section 5A, I have approved the revocation of the 1,633 titles. I hereby warn the previous holders of these titles to leave the relevant cadastra with immediate effect, as security agencies shall move in and work with the Mines Inspectorate Division of the Ministry to apprehend any defaulter found on any of these areas where titles have been revoked.
That was the Minister of Mines and Steel in Nigeria, Oladele Alake, speaking there. Well, outside the South region now, gunmen killed 9 people and left several others wounded in an attack on a weekly market in Bameniam town in the west of Cameroon early on Tuesday, according to local officials. The attack in Bambutu's division, a French-speaking area, took place close to the region where armed separatists have been fighting to carve out an independent English-speaking state called Ambazonia since 2017. None of the separatist groups have claimed responsibility for the attack. Attacks on French-speaking regions have increased in the last 2 years as rebels have stepped up their drive to create a breakaway state. The drawn-out conflict stemmed from perceived marginalization of Cameroon's Anglophone community by the majority Francophone-led government. The fighting has killed more than 6,000 people and displaced nearly 1 million, with atrocities committed by both sides.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
We head back now to Banjul and join Sankuli Janko for the newspaper review.
Hello there and welcome to this edition of the newspaper review. Let's begin today's newspaper review with the Standard newspaper, whose lead story reads, Farmers Platform says $38,000 is not agreement with GGC. It is reported that the government has agreed to buy each ton of groundnut for an amount of $38,000 for this groundnut season. However, this farmers platform says that is not the agreement they had with the government of the Gambia. Semlex stops work until contract is resolved. Semlex is the company that has been contracted by the Gambia government to produce national identity cards as well as national passports. A woman gets 10 years for drug trafficking. Attorney General expresses interest in settling Aki case out of court. That's another story on the Standard newspaper. And this other one reads, AfriCell, QCell ordered to provide witnesses' phone data in alleged police killers case. Government working to resolve ID cards driver's license situation. Let's move on to the Fourier newspaper. The Fourier newspaper's lead story has to do with the issue of the national documents, and it reads, Gambia stops printing national ID card, other documents. Attorney General, Aki victims' families ready for out-of-court settlement. Because as you're aware, there was an ongoing case when families of victims of the acute kidney injury, sued the government and orders to court. But the presiding judge, Justice Ibrahim Ajayda, has actually advised both parties to have an out-of-court settlement. And as we speak, the matter is out of the court as both parties try to have an agreement as the way forward. The Gambia receives $60 million to boost sustainable growth and climate resilient. This other one reads, finally, Supreme Court sets record straight in outdated Banfo Commission. Assembly Committee on Finance Public Accounts slashes Finance Ministry's budget allocation. Farmers describe groundnut price as shockingly unsatisfactory. Let's move on to the Point newspaper, and the Point newspaper's lead story today reads, government to buy groundnut for $38,000 per ton. That's the lead story on the Point newspaper. Stayed ready to settle AKI victims' case out of court, as it has been carried by other newspapers as well. A defense lawyer requests witnesses' call records in alleged PIU Suta case. Barrow urges youth to refrain from backway, and his critics say, provide them something if you don't want them to embark on irregular migration. This other one reads, government races to resolve ID cards driver license situation. Gambia receives $60 million to boost sustainable growth, climate change. And finally, let's take a look at the Voice newspaper. The Voice newspaper's lead story reads, Barrow says Al-Kalulu should know they work with government. Al-Kalulu are the village chiefs in the Gambia, and the president says they should be aware that they do work with the government of the Gambia. Fees for passports, court summons, orders to go up in 2024. And government officials' corruption trial resumes. I'm afraid these are the major stories making headlines on Gambian dailies, and it's back to you in the studio.
Many thanks, Sankuli Janko, with the newspaper review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
In this segment of The Guests, we take you to our first story from Liberia, where there have been some developments following the announcement of Mr. Joseph Boakai as a winner of the presidential election. However, expectations among Liberians have hit the roof, and experts fear that the incoming president will have a lot on his table, especially within his first 100 days in office. We caught up with independent analyst Abdullah Katamba on these and other numerous issues making rounds in Liberia. He started by condemning the auto incident, which has killed 3 people so far and injured many others.
Well, I think, post-election trauma and experiences are handled differently. And it is, first of all, it is very disturbing, it's heartbreaking, it is unacceptable for people to be celebrating a democratic victory and they're exposed to danger and losing their lives. This represents the dark past that we felt we've overcome. So I think that is bad too. The police have not identified particular reasons, and I think we all should not make any premature judgment. But I think it is a bad reflection of the desire of our people for peace and stability. And I think that's not, people are pillaging offices, people are scraping down offices, people are taking cars across the borders, people are basically taking things that do not belong to them in most cases. And this is, I think, represent a very negative picture of Liberia across the world.
Were you worried initially that there may be some violence during the results announcement? Because we hear that even some members of the then ruling party, CDC, made attempts to challenge the results in court.
Yeah, obviously there were a lot of concerns. People were ready for the worst case scenarios. There were a lot of people who were going to shut down if they announced the result because people felt that Joe Biden was on the verge of winning. And there were also, the president himself said in the church, if he had listened to some of his ministers not to accept the results, Liberia would have been in chaos. So Friday was a very difficult place for a lot of people. People were worried and concerned. And I think that that was averted. And I think that is important. But a lot of people felt people wanted to go to Supreme Court. Just the prolonging the process, it would have produced other problems. And then new intervention of new problems. People knew where that was leading, going to Supreme Court, delaying the process. And people knew that. People would have been angry and hit the streets. And you cannot take the genie out of the bottle if you let it out of the bottle. People knew that. But I think the president, it was a mark of statesmanship that he accepted the results before he got influenced by some of the players around him. Because he said in his chat, if he had allowed some of the players to influence him, it would have been too late. They would not be here. We would not be here at this moment.
Well, Mr. Joseph Boakai is not new to politics and governance overall as a former vice president. What is that one thing you feel that he can quickly handle as soon as he takes his oath of office?
I think it's his experience in managing a government. And President Weah came to power without that experience. I think he has a network of relationships in the country that he can leverage to create a sense of new direction. And the second aspect, I think his team, he had a lot of technocrats and professionals that will help give assurance to the public, international partners, that this ship is sailing in the right direction. So I think those are the things he come up with. Because he understands government, he understands the game, he understands the systems. So I think he has a handle on these issues. The only thing I think he has to manage expectation. If he does not manage expectation, he's going to be unpopular very soon because the expectations are high. Because people feel, John, we have failed us. Baka is the redeemer. And if you see people in that light, it is important to. So Baka has he has to manage expectation. He has to do something the first 100 days that shows that he's committed to what he campaigned on. If he does not do that, he will begin to experience some level of disappointment, frustration, and disillusionment. But let's see what happens. And also the names of the cabinet. If he appoint people who don't let it pass, who are all corrupt player officials, he's gonna have a problem. If you appoint the old faces of the bureaucrats who are seen as part of the problem in Liberia, always in every government, he's gonna have a problem. His appointment has to reflect people who are not the same old guys who building homes, getting rich. If he does not do that, he's gonna have a problem.
Indeed, Mr. Abdullah, thank you so much for talking to us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
That was Mr. Abdullah Gatamba there. In sport news, reigning African champion Senegal's perfect start to the FIFA 2026 World Cup qualifying campaign suffered a minor setback after a goalless draw against Togo on Tuesday. The Teranga Lions were held by the Togolese in Lomé despite pushing for a win. Despite the draw, however, Senegal remains top of Group B with 4 points ahead of Sudan in second. Another surprising result in the World Cup qualifier saw the Black Stars of Ghana lose to Comoros 1-0 on Tuesday. Ghana replicated their narrow 1-0 victory against Chad last week, leaving them fourth on the table in Group 1 behind Comoros, Mali and Madagascar. And we've come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Christian Mukudi and Maudoju for the technical support. Let's continue the conversation on our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, at WADR News. I am Imo Edit. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0, and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals